Please do make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Families are supposed to break bread together, not each other's hearts. Yet that night at dinner, when my daughter-in-law looked me in the eye and spat, "You're not even half the woman my mother is," I knew something inside me snapped. I didn't shout. I didn't throw the glass I was holding. Instead, I leaned back, pushed my chair away from the table, and with a calmness that chilled even me, I said, "Then she can start paying your rent." The room went silent. You could hear the clock ticking against the wall. My son's fork clattered against his plate as he froze, his face draining of color. "Rent," he whispered, his voice cracking like glass. "What rent?" I could see the storm brewing in his eyes, the storm I had been holding back for years. The secret was out now, and there was no undoing it. That was the moment everything began to unravel. And if I'm being honest, part of me wanted it to. I had promised myself I would hold my tongue. I had promised myself I wouldn't ruin my son's happiness, no matter how sharp his wife's words cut me, no matter how many times she found subtle ways to belittle me. But promises are easy to make and harder to keep when you've been carrying a truth that could shatter your child's entire marriage. That night, the four of us sat around my dining table. I had cooked because, as usual, she wasn't in the mood to lift a finger. My son, Benji, smiled politely, trying to keep the peace, while his wife, Dorothy, twirled her fork and sighed as though being in my home was beneath her. Her mother, of course, wasn't there. But her ghost was always hanging over us, because Dorothy never missed a chance to remind me that her mother was smarter, kinder, stronger. That night, she finally voiced it, sharp and bitter as vinegar. "You're not even half the woman my mother is." I felt my pulse quicken. My jaw tightened. And then, those words slipped out of me like they'd been waiting years to escape. "Then she can start paying your rent." Benji's head snapped toward me. His eyes widened, confusion and fear mixing together. "Rent? What rent?" I could feel the air grow heavier in the room. Dorothy's smirk faltered for the first time since I had met her. She shifted in her chair, suddenly pale. Because she knew. She knew exactly what I was talking about. And Benji, poor Benji had no idea. Benji's voice cracked again. "Mom, what rent?" His fork lay forgotten on the plate, his hand trembling as though I had just accused him of a crime. He looked at me like he didn't even recognize me anymore, like I had suddenly become a stranger sitting across from him. I swallowed, my eyes flickering toward Dorothy. She shifted uncomfortably in her chair, her manicured fingers tightening around her wine glass. She didn't look at Benji, oh no, she couldn't. Instead, her eyes darted down to her lap, where her napkin was twisted into knots. That's when I knew she was scared. "Benji," I said slowly, my voice calmer than I felt, "I think there's something you deserve to know. Something I never wanted to bring up in front of you. But your wife seems to have forgotten her place tonight." Dorothy's head snapped up, fury dancing in her eyes. "Don't you dare," she hissed, her voice low but venomous. My heart pounded in my chest. I had promised myself I wouldn't ruin him with the truth. But in that moment, watching her glare at me like she could strike me dead across the table, I realized, the only one protecting Benji was me. He turned his head between us, his voice shaking. "What's going on here? What do you mean rent? Dorothy, do you know what she's talking about?" Dorothy forced a smile, but it was brittle, broken. "She's just confused, Benji. Maybe she's tired. Or maybe she's..." "Don't," I cut in sharply. "Don't twist this." I stood from my chair, my legs trembling but my voice steady. I leaned forward across the table so my words cut clean through the silence. You've been living under my roof, eating my food, driving the car I bought when yours broke down. And all this time, I let the words hang, watching the color drain from Dorothy's face. Your mother was the one signing the checks. Benji's mouth fell open. He looked like I had slapped him. His eyes shot to Dorothy, then back to me. Checks? What checks? Mom, what are you saying? The clock ticked. The silence grew unbearable. Finally, Dorothy snapped. She slammed her glass down so hard red wine splattered across the tablecloth. Enough, she screamed, her voice shaking. This isn't your business, it's ours. But Benji didn't move. He just stared at me, his breathing ragged, waiting, begging for me to explain. And I knew, once I told him, there would be no going back. I could feel my son's eyes on me, burning holes into my soul. He had always trusted me, always seen me as the steady one in his life, the anchor he could return to when the world felt too heavy. And now, here I was, about to sink him with the very truth I had kept hidden to protect him. Benji, I started carefully, my voice trembling more than I wanted it to. Do you remember the apartment you and Dorothy moved into after your wedding? He blinked, confused. Of course. We moved because it was closer to Dorothy's job. Yes. I nodded. And because you couldn't afford the down payment at the time. Benji frowned. You helped us. You said it was a gift. His words broke off mid-sentence, realization dawning on his face like a cruel sunrise. I closed my eyes for a moment, steadying myself. I said it was a gift because I couldn't bear to see you struggle. But Benji, I opened my eyes and met his, unflinching. It wasn't me who has been keeping you in that apartment all this time. The monthly rent, it's been paid. But not by you. And not by me. He sat back, his face pale, his lips parting but no sound coming out. I could feel Dorothy stiffen beside him, every muscle in her body tight, like a predator cornered. It was her mother, I said finally, the words dropping like stones into water. Benji's hand went to his forehead, his breath shaky. Her mother? What do you mean her mother? I glanced at Dorothy. She was trembling now, but her eyes, oh, those eyes, were still blazing with defiance. Don't you dare paint this like charity, she snapped. It wasn't like that. Benji turned on her so fast she flinched. Then what was it like, Dorothy? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like we've been living a lie. Her voice cracked, softer now, desperate. I was just trying to protect you. Protect me. Benji barked, standing so suddenly his chair scraped against the floor. Protect me from what? I stayed seated, silent, watching the walls of their marriage begin to splinter. My heart ached for my son, but I also knew the worst was yet to come. Because Dorothy's mother wasn't just paying the rent. No. She was paying for something much bigger. And once Benji knew what it was, nothing in his life or mine would ever be the same. Benji's voice shook the walls. Protect me from what, Dorothy? His fists were clenched at his sides, his eyes darting between us like a man drowning and searching for something to hold on to. Dorothy finally rose from her chair, her breath ragged. The fierce arrogance she had worn all evening was slipping like a mask that no longer fit. Her hands trembled as she smoothed her dress, though her voice tried to steady itself. You don't understand, she said, staring down at the floor instead of at him. You've never understood how fragile you really are. Benji blinked, as if she'd slapped him. Fragile? Her lip quivered. Yes. You've always been too trusting, too soft. You think people have your best interests at heart, but they don't. They use you, Benji. They laugh at you. And I wasn't going to let you fail, at least not while I could stop it. By lying to me. His voice cracked. By hiding this from me for years. Dorothy's eyes finally met his, wet with unshed tears. If I told you, you never would have agreed. You'd have thrown away everything we've built just to prove some ridiculous point about pride. And then what? We'd be broke. Homeless. Miserable. Benji's chest rose and fell in heavy bursts. He turned to me, desperate. Mom, is that true? Did she really think I couldn't handle the truth? I wanted to gather him in my arms, shield him from all of this. But he wasn't a little boy anymore. He needed the truth even if it destroyed him. Benji, I said softly, she didn't just keep this from you. She made a deal. One you were never supposed to find out about. Dorothy spun toward me, her eyes wide with panic. Stop it, she shrieked. Don't you dare. Benji rounded on her again, his face red, his voice breaking. A deal? What deal, Dorothy? Her shoulders sagged, her fight collapsing into something that looked more like surrender. She sank back into her chair, her voice low and trembling. My mother, she whispered, she agreed to pay the rent. To cover things. But it wasn't just charity. She said it was an investment. Benji stared at her, confused. Investment in what? Dorothy's lips pressed together so tightly they turned white. Her silence was more damning than any words. And that's when I realized she was still hiding something. Something darker. Something that could burn everything to the ground once spoken aloud. The truth I had suspected for years was clawing its way to the surface. But Dorothy wasn't ready to say it. Not yet. Investment in what, Dorothy? Benji's voice thundered across the room, echoing in the silence that followed. Dorothy flinched, her hands gripping the edge of the table as though it might keep her grounded. She glanced at me, her eyes sharp with desperation, as if begging me not to open my mouth. But it was too late for silent bargains. You can't hide anymore, I said evenly. My voice was calm, but my heart hammered so hard I thought the entire table could hear it. Benji slammed his palm against the wood, making the wine glasses rattle. Tell me the truth, Dorothy, all of it. Her composure crumbled. She buried her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking. Fine, she sobbed. It wasn't just rent. It was everything. The car, the furniture, the trips, every bit of it. My mother was covering what you couldn't. Benji reeled back as though she had struck him. His voice cracked. What I couldn't. Dorothy, I've been working overtime, breaking my back to keep us afloat. And all this time, you let me believe we were managing. You let me believe. His voice faltered, choked by something deeper than anger. Something like betrayal. Dorothy looked up, tears streaking her cheeks, her mascara bleeding into dark rivers. I didn't want you to know, Benji. You would have hated me for it. You would have left me. The room was heavy with the stench of secrets and lies. I sat perfectly still, though every muscle in me wanted to rise, to pull my son away from her poisonous grip. But I couldn't, not yet. Not until she said the part one knew she was still hiding. Benji's face twisted with anguish. So you've been lying to me for our entire marriage? Is that it? What else, Dorothy? Dorothy's eyes darted around the room like a trapped animal. She opened her mouth, then shut it again. I leaned forward, my voice low but piercing. Tell him the rest. Her gaze snapped to mine, full of hatred. Don't you dare, she hissed, her voice shaking. But Benji was on her now, grabbing her wrist across the table, his knuckles white. What rest, Dorothy? What else are you hiding from me? For a long, tense moment, she sat frozen, trembling under his stare. Then finally, in a voice so small it barely carried across the room, she whispered, "My mother didn't just pay the rent. She made sure I married you." The words dropped like a bomb. Benji blinked, stunned. Made sure? What does that even mean? Dorothy closed her eyes, tears spilling down her face. But she didn't answer. She couldn't. Because behind that confession still lay the darkest truth of all. A truth I had known would destroy him. A truth she was still too afraid to speak. Benji's face drained of color. What do you mean, Dorothy? What do you mean your mother made sure you married me? Dorothy's lips trembled. She wrung her hands in her lap, her gaze fixed on the tablecloth as though she could disappear into it. Dorothy. Benji's voice was sharp, commanding. Look at me and tell me what that means. Finally, she lifted her head. Her eyes were red, her cheeks wet. Her voice came out in a broken whisper. She set everything up. The job offer you got right before we met. The chance encounters we kept having. None of it was an accident, Benji. My mother orchestrated all of it. She made sure I was in your path, over and over, until you couldn't imagine life without me. Benji staggered back a step, his chest heaving. He shook his head violently, as though trying to shake the words right out of his ears. No, that's insane. You're saying, what? That our marriage, our entire relationship, was some kind of project? Dorothy buried her face in her hands. She said it was for the best. That you were safe. That you'd take care of me. Her words dissolved into sobs. Benji's voice broke. Safe. That's all I was to you. A safe bet. I could hardly breathe, watching the devastation ripple across my son's face. He had loved her deeply, blindly. And now, the foundation of that love was crumbling beneath him. But I knew this wasn't the end. Because Dorothy's mother hadn't just orchestrated their meeting. She had invested far more into this marriage than Benji could begin to imagine. Benji gripped the edge of the table, his knuckles white. Why didn't you tell me? Why, Dorothy? Her shoulders shook, her voice breaking. Because you wouldn't have married me if you knew. The silence that followed was suffocating. Benji turned to me then, his eyes wild, pleading. Mom, did you know about this? The question cut me like a blade. I hesitated, because I had known. Not all of it, but enough. Enough to know this marriage was tainted from the start. I opened my mouth, then closed it. Because if I said what I really knew, the truth would explode before its time. So instead, I said quietly, Benji, there's more you need to hear. But it should come from her. Dorothy looked at me with pure hatred, her chest heaving. You're trying to destroy us, she spat. I met her glare, unflinching. No, Dorothy. You already did that. I'm just pulling back the curtain. Benji's eyes darted between us, desperation etched into every line of his face. Then for God's sake, somebody tell me the whole truth before I lose my mind. Dorothy's lips parted, as if she might finally speak. But the words caught in her throat. Because the darkest part of this web, what her mother had truly been buying with all that money, still sat buried in silence. Waiting. And I knew, when it finally came out, it wouldn't just end a marriage. It would destroy everything. Benji's voice broke as he gripped the back of his chair. Dorothy, I am begging you, stop lying, stop hiding. Just tell me everything. All of it. Dorothy's chest rose and fell in sharp, uneven bursts. Her lips parted, trembling as though the words were fighting to escape. She whispered, I never wanted you to find out this way. I thought maybe you'd never have to know. Know what? Benji roared. She flinched, her hands clutching the tablecloth so hard her knuckles turned white. For a split second, I thought she might finally spill it all, the truth that had been rotting beneath the surface for years. But then, just as quickly, she shut her mouth. Her jaw tightened, her eyes darting to me with a flicker of hatred. No, she said in a hoarse whisper. Not like this. He'll never forgive me if I say it. Benji slammed the chair forward, his face red with fury. Say what? What could possibly be so bad that you'd rather watch me fall apart than admit it? Her tears streamed freely now, her voice a broken whisper. If I tell you, Benji, you'll never look at me the same again. You'll never look at yourself the same again. The room went dead silent. Even the clock on the wall seemed to pause. Benji staggered back, his chest heaving, as if her words had punched the air out of him. What do you mean? I watched her crumble, but I also knew Dorothy would never willingly spit out the poison, not until she was forced. She'd drag this secret to the grave if she could. So I leaned forward, my voice quiet but sharp enough to cut glass. Benji, I said, my eyes locked on his, this isn't about rent. Or pride. Or even your marriage. This is about why her mother invested so much in tying her to you. Dorothy's head snapped toward me, terror in her eyes. Stop, she hissed. Don't you dare. But it was too late. The seed had been planted. Benji's hands shook as he gripped the edge of the table, his eyes wide, haunted. Why? He whispered. Why would her mother care so much about me? I held his gaze, my heart breaking for the storm about to swallow him whole. Because, son, I said slowly, deliberately, you're not the man you think you are. The color drained from Benji's face. He staggered backward, his lips parting in shock. What does that mean? Dorothy buried her face in her hands, sobbing uncontrollably. And I knew the next words spoken in this house would destroy someone. Benji's knees felt weak. His hands gripped the edge of the table so tightly his knuckles whitened. Mom, what do you mean? What don't I know about myself? I leaned back slightly, letting the tension stretch between us like a wire ready to snap. Dorothy's sobs filled the silence, but I ignored them. This moment was for Benji, not for her. Do you remember, Benji? I began slowly, all the times you were told someone else's mistakes were your own? He frowned, shaking his head. I don't know what you mean. You were led to believe, I continued, my voice quiet but firm, that your failures, your shortcomings, even some of the misfortunes in your life were your fault. But they weren't. They were planned, manipulated, designed to keep you in a certain place, to make you pliable, easy to control. Benji's jaw dropped, and he staggered backward slightly, as though my words had physically struck him. Controlled. Dorothy, your mother? You're saying she's been manipulating me all this time? Dorothy shrank into her chair, covering her face with her hands. It wasn't like that, she whispered, but her voice was weak and unconvincing. I let my gaze settle on Benji. Not just her. There are layers here, son. Layers that even Dorothy can't bring herself to tell you yet. He staggered toward me, desperation etched into every line of his face. Mom, please, just tell me. Whatever it is, I need to know. I took a deep breath, choosing my words with care. Your entire adult life has been shaped by decisions made for you, Benji. Some of them for your protection, yes, but some of them to trap you. And the first layer of that trap is what Dorothy just admitted: her mother orchestrated your marriage, controlled your finances, manipulated your circumstances. Benji's hands shook so violently he had to clutch the table for support. So, my life, everything I thought I built, it's been a lie. I nodded slowly. Not everything. You've built parts of it, yes. But the foundation, that was never yours alone. Dorothy peeked at him through tear-streaked fingers, fear and regret wrestling in her expression. I never meant for it to come out like this, she whispered. Benji turned on her, voice cracking. But it did. And I deserve the truth, all of it. I leaned in, my eyes steady. The truth, Benji, is far darker than you can imagine. And what Dorothy still isn't telling you, that is only the beginning. The deepest secret, the part that will change everything you think you know about her mother, and about yourself, is yet to come. His face went pale, the color draining completely. What do you mean? I let the silence hang, thick and suffocating. Because I knew he could feel it, the coming storm. And once it hit, nothing in his life, nothing in this house, would ever be the same. Benji sat frozen, staring at Dorothy like he couldn't believe she had been sitting there all these years, hiding the truth behind a mask of love. Dorothy's hands trembled as she tried to rise, but she sank back into her chair, sobbing. I never wanted you to know this way, she whispered. Benji's voice rose, desperate, sharp. Then tell me, Dorothy, I need the truth. What else have you hidden from me? Her gaze flicked toward me, silently pleading for help, for mercy. But I remained still, watching, letting the tension squeeze the room like a vice. It was time. She swallowed hard, trembling, and finally spoke. My mother didn't just orchestrate our meeting. She chose me for you, she admitted, her voice breaking. She studied you, everything about you, your habits, your weaknesses, your personality. She made sure I was someone who could get close enough to control you without you ever realizing it. Benji staggered back as if the words hit him like a physical blow. Control me. His hands clenched the edge of the table. You're saying, my wife was chosen to manipulate me? Dorothy nodded, tears streaming down her face. Yes. And for years. I followed her instructions. I tried to stay loyal to her plan. I thought I was helping you, keeping you safe. But I was only following orders. Benji's voice shook with rage and disbelief. Orders? From your mother? So my whole marriage, everything, was a lie. I leaned forward, my voice calm, cutting through the storm of emotion. Not everything, Benji. You built moments, memories, victories on your own. But the scaffolding, the strings behind it all, Dorothy's mother pulled them. And the second layer of this truth, the part she still refuses to speak, is the reason she invested so much. The reason she paid your rent, your bills, arranged your life, and manipulated you into this marriage. Dorothy flinched, like she wanted to speak but feared the consequences. I let the pause stretch, thick and suffocating. That reason, Benji, it isn't just about money or control. It's about something far darker. And when it finally comes out, I let my words sink in, slow and deliberate. It will change everything you thought you knew about your life, your marriage, and the people you trust most. Benji's face drained of all color. His chest rose and fell in heavy, shallow breaths. I don't even know how to process this. Dorothy's tears fell freely now, her voice a whisper. I can't tell him everything. Not yet. He'd never forgive me. I gave her a hard, unflinching stare. He deserves the truth, Dorothy. But it has to come in stages. The final layer, the darkest part, is coming. And when it does, it will either destroy him or awaken him. Benji's hands trembled on the table, his mind racing. The sense of impending doom was suffocating him. Mom, what is it? What is the final layer? I let silence answer him, heavy and suffocating. Because the final truth was closer than any of us realized. And when it finally surfaced, it would blow the roof off this house and leave nothing in its place but shattered lives. Benji's hands shook violently as he backed away from the table, his eyes wild. Enough. I can't take it anymore. Dorothy, just tell me. I need the truth now. Dorothy's sobs choked her words. She looked at me, a silent plea, as if begging me to intervene. But I knew this had to come from her. It had to fall like a thunderbolt, blinding, unavoidable. She inhaled deeply, trembling, and then spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. My mother, she didn't just want to control you or protect me. She wanted something from you. Something only you could give. Benji froze, his face pale, heart hammering. What do you mean? Dorothy's eyes filled with tears. She made sure I married you because she needed your signature. On the company. On the accounts. On everything that mattered. All these years, she's been funneling your money, your inheritance, your assets, through me. I was the instrument she used to secure it. The room fell deathly silent. The air was thick, suffocating, each second stretching like an eternity. Benji staggered backward. You used me? His voice broke into a whisper, disbelief and betrayal twisting his words. All this time, my life, my marriage, everything, just for her gain. Dorothy bowed her head. I never wanted it to happen this way. I thought, maybe you'd never find out. I leaned forward, my gaze locked on Benji. Son, that's only part of it. The final piece, the reason your life has been manipulated and controlled, is far deeper than just money or marriage. She planned for you to be trapped in a position that would benefit her, in ways you can't even imagine yet. Benji's knees gave out, and he sank into his chair, shaking. I trusted her. I loved her. And I was blind. Dorothy whimpered, her voice trembling. I thought I was helping. I thought I was protecting you. But I was just following her orders. And now, it's all falling apart. I placed a hand gently on Benji's arm. The storm is coming, son. But at least now, you know who's been pulling the strings. And from here, you have to decide what you'll do with the truth, and who you will trust moving forward. Benji's face was pale, hollow. Everything I thought was mine, everything I thought I built, it's all a lie. I nodded. Yes. And now you have the choice to reclaim it or let it consume you. Dorothy buried her face in her hands, sobbing uncontrollably. But the damage was done. The truth had been revealed. The lies had been stripped bare. And in that moment, one thing was certain. Nothing, and I mean nothing, would ever be the same again. The war for trust, for power, and for the life Benji thought was his, had only just begun. The house was silent now, but it wasn't peaceful. It was the kind of silence that settles after a storm, thick with tension and the weight of things left unsaid. Benji sat at the table, his hands clutching the edge so tightly the wood groaned. His face was pale, eyes hollow, and yet there was a fire smoldering behind them, a fire of anger, betrayal, and determination. Dorothy sat across from him, trembling, her tears long spent. She looked at me, her gaze pleading, but I said nothing. She had set the trap, her mother had orchestrated it, And now it was Benji's turn to choose his path. He finally looked at her, his voice low but deadly serious. You lied to me for years. You manipulated me. You used me. And your mother orchestrated all of this. Dorothy's head fell into her hands, silent now, defeated. Benji stood slowly, his legs stiff, his voice hardening. But here's what you need to understand, what you didn't plan for. I'm still me. I'm still the man I always was before all of this. And I get to decide what comes next. Not you. Not her. He turned to me, his expression raw but trusting. Mom, thank you. For telling me. For standing by me. I don't know what comes next, but I'm glad I know the truth. I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. You're stronger than you realize, Benji. Stronger than either of them gave you credit for. Now, you decide how to rebuild and who deserves a place in your life. Dorothy looked up, her voice a whisper. Benji, I never meant to hurt you. I thought I was protecting you. He shook his head slowly, the betrayal still burning behind his eyes. Protecting me? No, you were protecting her. Protecting her schemes. And I won't let it happen again. The truth had been revealed, the lies had been stripped bare, and the house felt smaller, tighter, as if it had absorbed the weight of all the deceit. And one thing was clear, life would never be the same. Benji's shoulders squared, his jaw tightening. He was no longer the man who had blindly trusted the people around him. He was awake now. Alert. And finally free. Dorothy and her mother had built their cage and he had been trapped inside it for years. But now, Benji was standing tall, ready to reclaim his life, piece by piece. And as for me, I would be there, watching, protecting, guiding. Not to control, not to manipulate, but to make sure that no one, not Dorothy, not her mother, not anyone ever tried to pull the strings in my son's life again. The storm had passed. But the reckoning, the true reckoning, was only just beginning. And in that silence, thick with betrayal and heartbreak, one thing rang clear: I had finally won. Not through anger, not through vengeance, but through the truth. And the truth, I knew, was more powerful than any lie could ever be.